Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode, part of the Microsoft Sentinel in the Field series. We now have our own playlist in the Microsoft Security channel, so you can actually visit this link below to see all of our episodes. Hello, Javier.
Hello, Chris. Yeah, great news with that playlist now live. And today we have with us Andrew Lomakin, who is going to talk to us about the SAP threat monitoring solution in Microsoft Sentinel. So, hello, Andrew.
Hello, guys. Very happy to be here.
So, Andrew, first of all, welcome. A couple of different questions. What is SAP? Why is it important? Why does it host sensitive information? How can it be catastrophic for an environment?
Right, Chris, think of SAP as a business system that is used by multiple large enterprises that, amongst other things, may be responsible for activities like processing order, invoices, your paycheck, and other quite sensitive information. So yeah, it's one of those really big and critical systems in the enterprise.
Okay, thanks for the context. So yeah, payroll, we're talking about order processing, so very, very critical systems for the enterprise. How can Sentinel help protect these systems?
Well, since a breach in SAP system can result in stolen files, disrupted supply chain, exposed company secrets, Sentinel allows to protect SAP on a number of levels. On the application level, by monitoring SAP audit logs, for example, but that's just a part of it. On the operating system level, by monitoring the health and security of the operating system. On the infrastructure level, network level, and database level.
Okay, so what kind of protection does Sentinel have? Do we have a solution for it out of the box package? What's out there available today?
Right, so we do have a solution that consists of a number of analytic rules, watch lists, and workbooks.
Okay, so I can imagine that if we do all that kind of protection on those different layers that you talked about, like business logic, OS level, etc., we have, I guess, a data connector specific to SAP. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. For SAP, we have developed a connector that sits in a Docker container, connects to SAP through RFC protocol, and then retrieves the logs, retrieves the configured tables from SAP, and then streams it to Microsoft Sentinel, where that data is then processed, analyzed, and analytic rules are applied, and incidents are created.
That's amazing. I mean, you mentioned a whole bunch of different artifacts like analytic rules, playbooks, workbooks. Do we have any watch lists as part of the mix?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have watch lists. We do have a number of those watch lists which allow you to tweak the behavior of the solution. And also, our solution contains quite a high number of those analytic rules and workbooks. So it's really, really a comprehensive setup.
It's
Beautiful,
awesome.
Andrew. Let's do a demo of this.
Absolutely. Let's demo time now.
Definitely.
All right, let's jump into a demo. So what you see here on the screen is my data connector agent running inside a Docker container on a very small VM in Azure, pulling data from an SAP system. What you see in here, it's actually pulling all the different logs. There's the audit log that is being pulled. There's a spool log, job log, and a lot of other data that's being extracted from SAP system. Setting up this data connector is, well, it's a process. We actually have it documented quite thoroughly on our documentation page. I'll have a link for that in the video description. It's step by step. It covers all the major milestones like the prerequisites, SAP environment preparation, how you actually deploy the data connector agent, and what are the post-deployment steps. So in order to set up the second counterpart of this, you actually have to go into the Content Hub here on the Microsoft Sentinel workspace and navigate through the list of the available solutions. We are a featured solution, continuous threat protection for SAP. It's just should be on the top of the page there. So in order to deploy it, you just select it. And then here in the actions, you'll have deploy option. Obviously, in my demo environment, it's already been set up. If there's an update available, there's going to be an update button over here, but I'm running the latest and greatest. So let's have a look at what kind of data we are receiving into our Microsoft Sentinel workspace. And for that, we'll navigate into the logs. And over here, we'll see a list of all the different logs that are available to us. For example, one of the important ones is the audit log. Right, it is essentially a list of all the actions that users have been doing, all the sign-ins, data modification, any RFC calls, transactions that were executed, successful, unsuccessful logons, user modification. A lot of stuff is coming from the audit log, and that's just a sample that we are receiving all that from our data connector agent, which sits in Docker, which looks at SAP, right? So also we've got this user master data here, like the USRO1 and USRO2 tables that contain the list of users, which roles, which profiles these users were assigned, all sorts of info. We've got the DB table log, change docs log, spool log, like the data that has been downloaded or printed from SAP systems. So it is a very extensive amount of data that we are retrieving from SAP. So what are we doing with that data? Well, once you deploy the solution, you actually get 50 plus analytic rules that allow you to identify kind of most common threats that could affect your SAP system. Like, for example, one of the top ones and one of the rules that I like to demonstrate is like if a privileged user gets changed, if there's been any alteration to a privileged user, we'll raise an alert on such events.
So Andrew, you're mentioning a privileged user here. How do you identify if a user is privileged or not?
Great question, thank you. Actually, yeah, how do we identify a user as privileged? In Windows systems, it's the administrator, but SAP is kind of way more flexible. There is a lot of customization that can happen under the hood, and the way we do it, if you look at the KQL, which builds up this analytic rule, we're actually calling out to a function called SAP users get privileged, and that function, let's actually what we'll do, let's copy out that function and we'll go into our logs and we'll execute that function and we'll see what it does. Yeah, I probably have to put the brackets. Oh no, that's fine. So it's a list of all the users that have been identified by this function as privileged in A4H system, in XXX system, in S4H system, and so on and so forth. So it's essentially a list of all the privileged users that Sentinel knows about.
Quick question. Are these functions deployed together with the solution for SAP?
Yes, exactly. This function is deployed as part of the solution along with a few others. So if you expand here, functions, you'll see a lot of these, I call them kind of thin functions because, for example, SAP Audit Log function, it goes into the SAP Audit Log table, retrieves data from it, but with one minor difference that first, the fields look a little better, and second, data that comes from SAP may change, the structure, the scheme of that table may change, and what we're saying that with this function, we're giving you a fixed schema that it's not going to be impacted should there be a different data format coming in from SAP. So that allows us to kind of have this thin layer of compatibility from the raw data that we're receiving from SAP. But apart from the thin functions, there's also these more advanced functions like SAP users get privileged that we've just explored. There's also SAP, for example, user assignments, and that one's going to show us per user, like what kind of profiles these users have been assigned, right? So with help of these functions, we simplify our analytic rule creation, because essentially, if you now look into this analytic rule about change in sensitive privileged user, effectively what it does, it knows a list of events that indicate a change. It knows that events are coming in the audit log, and this is a list of all the audit classes that indicate a change. So essentially, we're going into SAP Audit Log. We are then filtering out all events where the message ID is within those audit classes, and then This is where the magic happens. We're doing a join on the SAP users get privileged and only filtering out those users that are really considered privileged by the system. And one way users can customize what is considered sensitive is by going into the watch lists, right? And you've got watch lists for sensitive roles, you've got watch lists for privileged users, sensitive transactions, and so on and so forth. So you can define specific users that you consider privileged, or you might just say any user that has a given role must be considered privileged. And this is the way, because every SAP system is different. There might be different transactions in it. There might be different roles that are considered privileged. So there's no one size fits all. So we give customers flexibility to actually go and define this for their specific SAP build. Now, as I said, we've got 50 analytic rules coming out of the solution once it's deployed.
Andrew, can you speak a little bit about the multi-layer approach for SAP?
Yeah, thanks for that. That's exactly what I actually wanted to talk about. We've got analytic rules are covering different aspects of SAP's security state. So it's definitely privileged user activities. It's the configuration changes that might be affecting the global system security, execution of sensitive transactions or sensitive programs. We also cover not just the ABAP systems, but we also cover activities occurring within the HANA DB. That requires a little bit of additional configuration, but still, once we get the audit data from the HANA DB, we can fire some alerts. We have activities for well-known attack vectors like SP-Nego attack. We have data loss prevention when a user downloads a large amount of files, like multiple files download. If a user is printing something, there's a spool execution, and we're constantly increasing the amount of these detections that we are offering to customers.
Andrew, you mentioned solution deploys also workbooks. Can you show what data is available there out of the box?
Yes, great. Let's actually talk about workbooks. So workbooks is a way you visualize data. We're getting insane amount of data from SAP. We're getting millions of events from the SAP system. Now, we give customers the ability to visualize it using well-known workbooks. It's a feature that's been in Sentinel for a while. We have 4 workbooks coming as part of the solutions. There's the Audit Log browser, initial access and attempts to bypass SAP security mechanisms, persistency, data exfiltration, and suspicious privileged operations. Let's explore one of those. So it's broken down into tabs, and each one of them display data related to a particular aspect of SAP's health and SAP system state. Now, again, my system is a bit boring because it's a lab environment. There's not much happening in it, but I assure you that in a live system, these graphs look way more alive, and they present data in a way that can be processed by the SOC team, presented on a dashboard, useful for anomaly identification, and so forth. So again, 4 workbooks are available out of the box, and you can then customize them further or add additional workbooks because, hey, the data is there, so go ahead and go query it.
So Andrew, you mentioned some automated response. What are some of the automated actions you can do?
Right, great. Actually, let's go to the analytics now. Let's go to automation now. And yes, in fact, the unique challenge with SAP is that it's a little bit of a world of its own. So essentially, we all know how to lock a user in Azure Active Directory. I mean, SOC people definitely know how to carry out such actions. But when it comes to SAP, it's a black box. How do we access it? How do we do things in it? You require special training for these kind of activities. Now, what we're saying is that we want to simplify this. We want to kind of close this gap between the SOC team members and the SAP environment. Now imagine you have a scenario when when a sensitive user logs in, like one of those DDIC or SAP star, those privileged users log into a system. Obviously, we have analytic rules that help you track these kind of activities. Now, imagine a SOC analyst gets an alert like that. There's a sensitive privileged user who's logged on. What would be their typical course of action? Well, probably call up the basis team and go figure out with them if it's expected activity or this is something that should be, should be blocked. But while all of this is happening, you're losing time. So we were thinking of, can we make it better experience and a quicker response time? And one of the ideas that we came up with, let me showcase my teams here. We came up with an adaptive card. So imagine a SOC analyst receives, apart from receiving an incident, he also receives a team message saying, hey, there's been some suspicious activity. A sensitive user is logged onto a system. We give you the user details. We give you the system name. And now, obviously, this is a demo, so you could populate this with additional data from the incident. But now, a SOC analyst can make an informed decision what to do next. And they might, and you see, this is not just a message or an email. Well, in this case, it's a Teams message, but this can work over email same way. He has a choice what to do next, and they can go and say, yeah, this looks suspicious. I'd rather stop this from happening, and select to lock the target user account. Now, this is the important piece, because what is happening behind the scenes. Now, let me open up this playbook. So this playbook essentially is triggered when an incident is created, right? It parses the incident data. There's some parsing, but the cool part is that it posts an adaptive card, and wait for it. It actually waits for a response, so it doesn't terminate. The flow doesn't terminate with us sending an email, but we want human response telling us, hey, what are we going to do about this? So we post some data, say affected username, affected host name. That's what we've seen in the card. And then we are waiting for the user's response. And if the response is to lock the target user account, which is what we have pressed, let's just scroll down a little bit more. We're going to connect back to SAP, and we're going to invoke an RFC call. And in this case, voila, we're going to lock the target user out. So not only we are able to read data from SAP, not only we're able to analyze data from SAP, but if this is designed, if this is put in place, we can also go back to SAP and help remediate risks without ever opening SAP GUI. So in this case, our SOC analyst has remediated a potential breach without even opening in an SAP console with a click of a button in Teams. And that is super cool.
How many of these playbooks are published as part of the solution?
Right. This is where it becomes a little bit tricky, because as part of the solution, we're not providing any of these playbooks. We are instead, there's a blog post which will be linked at the description of the video that explains on how to create this. And this is because of the super customized nature of SAP. So we couldn't come up with a design that would fit all SAP systems. So we instead encourage administrators and security experts to go build their own automation rules using this capability. So this SAP connector for Logic Apps is available as a building block within Logic Apps, and we provide instructions on how to get it working. It's actually quite a simple setup. It takes just a few hours to get this working. So out of box, you don't get it, but you get very good guidance on how to set this up.
So Andrew, the SAP solution definitely monitors sensitive and critical applications. How do you actually monitor the health of the solution itself?
Right. Okay. Let's talk about health monitoring. It's actually very, very easy. So over here in the Sentinel, you've got data connectors. You search for SAP. You've got this data connector here. You open the connector page, And that would show you a couple of indicators whether the system is healthy or not. So it says that you're receiving data. Last log was received 6 minutes ago, which kind of indicates that all is going well. Then there is the amount of data received chart, which again indicates whether things are flowing in nicely. But then there's also some health monitoring here in the at the bottom of the page. For every system, it says if there's been data received from it over the past days. So you see that these three are off. And this is alive. This is actually receiving data, so the system is healthy. Also, the solution gets updated on a regular basis. So if you need to redeploy it, and now if the solution's out of date, there's also going to be a mention of that here in the data connector health section. So that's pretty much what I wanted to demonstrate. I hope that you found this useful.
All right. First of all, thanks again, Andrew, and thank you, Javier, as always. Thanks, everybody, for tapping into another episode, part of the Microsoft Sentinel in the Field series. In this episode, we covered the Microsoft Sentinel out-of-the-box SAP solution. It covers so many different things when it comes to SAP, and also brings a lot of out-of-the-box content that you can use in your environment as well. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.